Welcome to the Sports Perspective, your number one destination for untold stories about the sports world. All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Sports Perspective. Today, I'm being joined by the Handyman of Professional Wrestling, Jake Gray. How are you doing today, Jake?
I'm doing pretty good. It's been already a little busy day, but I'm doing pretty good. How about you?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to get into it. Talk about your story. You ready to go?
I'm ready, my man.
All right. So I always like to start these by going back to the very start. So talk to me about how you first got into pro wrestling. Was there like a specific match that you watched that really drew you in as a fan, or was it just something else entirely?
So the first ever time I got exposed to wrestling was I'm a big horror movie fan. I've told this story a million times, but I love telling it. It's a very fun one. I'm a big horror movie fan. I've been watching them since I was like 6 years old, which isn't ideal. I probably shouldn't have seen all the Saw movies by the time I was 9. But I remember the channel Sci-Fi, I believe at the time, had this SmackDown, like they were showing SmackDown after some movies, and I think I was watching some crappy like sci-fi film, like sci-fi horror movie. SmackDown comes on, and I just had it in the background, and like in my room, and I was just like, oh, I'm just continue doing my stuff, and just like something about it just drew me in. And then I think the first time I really was like, oh, this wrestling stuff's real cool is like I had SmackDown on again, or it was Raw or Smack. It was one of the two, and John Cena had like the U.S. title at the time, and he was doing this thing where he was like, "Yo, anyone can come out here and wrestle me." And I remember that really drew me in. Like I was the John Cena Open Challenge for the U.S. title. That really for some reason was like, "Oh, this is kind of sick." And then he was having some awesome matches at the time, and I think that was honestly the first time that I was like, "Oh, this wrestling thing is like." Went from just being like, "Oh, this is wrestling," big guys hitting moves on the top rope to being like, oh wow, this is like there's something else to this.
That's awesome. So is John Cena like the first wrestler that like you really attached yourself to that you would say you were like a fan of?
Yeah, arguably, I would say yes, but I feel like that when you're a kid, almost everyone says John Cena. I would say the
Yeah.
first guy that like really like I hooked my teeth into and was like got me to also start watching stuff outside of WWE was AJ Styles when he made his debut in 2016. AJ is arguably my goat. Like I think AJ's never had a bad match in his career. I think he is, in my opinion, one of the greatest professional wrestlers of all time. And when he came into WWE in 2016, because that's when I started watching again, because like there was a situation where I hurt my brother on the trampoline wrestling, and we wasn't allowed to be watched for a while. So me and my brother, um, so like I started watching again after AJ made his debut, and that was he, like I said, something about AJ, just his presentation, his theme song, the way he wrestled. He really hooked me in back into wrestling again.
How did you feel about that retirement earlier this year?
I was in a little of it was one of the few times I feel like there's a reason that I've been like a fan again, where it's just like, oh damn, like that hurt that hurt me more than Cena's one, and Cena's one also was like pretty like that was pretty rough too, but like the AJ one hurt me a lot as well. But I thought it was a great match. I think, AJ, if he wanted to, could continue going. But I think the way, he got to end it however he wanted to end it, which is always like, I feel like, I think that's like the best way I feel like any wrestler could go out.
Absolutely. It was interesting that you brought up like it was the first time you got to like sit back and watch as like a fan in a minute. I know like personally, like outside of the podcast, the work I do is in like sports broadcasting. So like cameras, directing and all that. So like if I'm watching like I don't know, like the Celtics on NBC Sports Boston, like half the time I'm thinking about like, like how bad like the camera shot they're using is or something. So where do you draw that line between like seeing other people's professional wrestling and like like taking mental notes of what they're doing good and what they're doing bad, or going back to just enjoying it like when you first got into it and when you were still a fan?
Depends on the. I feel like it honestly would maybe depends on the match, depends on the show, depends on like the mood I'm in. Like I recently watched AEW Dynasty on I think it was Sunday. I went over and watched Dynasty with a couple friends, and like with that show, like I think I was able to watch that whole one as a fan, which was kind of fun. The only match I figured like I locked in and kind of watched was like to like take notes and try to maybe get better was the Darby Andrade match, but that's also because I take a lot from Darby, both like character wise as well as wrestling wise. So like I probably was a little more focused on that one, but I would say that AEW Dynasty has been the most recent time, but I've been watching just a lot of wrestling, especially since I got my injury at the beginning of March. Just watching just a lot of stuff. I started watching a lot of AAA. Like AAA has been a lot of fun to watch. So I think it always has for me, especially since I started wrestling, it's always become like I'm watching. It depends on the match. Depends who's in it. Is going to affect the reason why I'm watching it. If that makes sense.
Hmm. That's a great answer. Jumping around a little bit, we do talk about, being like a fan of wrestling, being a student of the game, you actually being a wrestler. Um, Were there any other sports that you like really enjoyed playing growing up? Because I know everyone, like dabbles around a little bit. I had a few sports I was really drawn to myself, but like I remember playing like a week of baseball back in like second grade or whatever, because my dad was like just a huge baseball fan. So was there anything else there for you? And was there anything else that really piqued your interest, or was it always wrestling in your mind?
So I did a lot of sports, like as similar to like you said. I did a year of baseball. I did a year of basketball at one time. When I was a kid, I did karate from like when I was 3, 4 years old till when I was about 10. Um, but no, I just I very think much of my interest in life drifted away from sports to like just media, like I said, big horror movie guy, big movie guy in general, big video games guy. I think my life very much drifted towards that, and then my interest in wrestling exploded as around the same time. Um, During high school, I joined a airsoft team, which is like not a full sport, but like it was physical activity for me that I hadn't done for a while. But I think like when it came to like if there's like one sport I really want to pursue, it was always gonna be wrestling. Like I always just told myself, hey, I just wanted to try it or train enough to maybe just get one match under my belt, and then if that that would be enough to satisfy me. And obviously. One match wasn't enough because I'm currently losing my mind right now. Just wanted to get back in the ring again to do something.
Absolutely. So you talk about wrestling being the sport for you. Talk to me about wrestling school. I believe you not only went to Bio Pro Wrestling Academy, but you were part of their first class. If my interns did their
Yes,
research right.
yes.
Um,
I am the third graduate of BioPro because I think Brett was in January and then Drager was in January after me, and then I ended up doing a match. I think for BioPro Wrestling we count graduation as wrestling on Wrestling Open, or beyond like a Wrestling Open show, and so I ended up doing a match in February 4th. And then remember doing it. It was like it was for a company called TOS, and they do like student shows because they're also a school. And my coach Tom has connections with a bunch of guys there because like Thomas Santel, he's someone that like I think the mainstream people will never know who he is, but if you're in New England wrestling, you're gonna know who the hell Thomas Santel is. And so Thomas Santel got me to have a match there against one of my other students, and then I remember that was like the one I was like, all right, yeah, what do I gotta do to get on open? Like I pulled Tom aside, I pulled Drew aside. I was like, hey, what do I need to do? Who do I need to talk to just get a match on open? And then I think it was in beginning of March that I had, or it was either beginning of March, end of February that I had my first ever match on Wrestling Open. So yeah, I was a third graduate. BioPro's been awesome. I remember I got my license in October of 2022. I was still 17 at the time. I'm just like, hey, I want to try this wrestling thing. Like, that was the main thing. It was just like, hey, let's wait till I get my license. I got my license. I was gonna go to Chaotic, but I'm a Worcester native. I don't live in Worcester anymore, but I've always lived around Worcester. Worcester is always, if people ask me, "Hey, where are you from?" I always say Worcester. That's like my automatic answer. Um, so I was like looking around, and then I remember saying, "Oh shit, BioPro opened up," and it's like this is a 10-minute drive from my house. So it's like, oh, this is perfect. This is the perfect place. Started training there at the time. It was Thomas Santel and Ken Doan who was a trainer, and then Ken left, and then we brought in Brian Malonis, and now we have Ricky Shane Page as well as like Love Doug and TJ Crawford came in. And I remember when I started training, I knew that my size was going to affect me because I've never been the biggest guy. I think I surprised a couple people of like kind of maybe how tall I am. I'm not the tallest dude either. Like I'm like maybe max 6 foot, but like I think a lot of people like just I'm a very lean person, and I knew that was gonna affect me for a very long time. So like I started trying to do stuff when it came to refereeing, and then I remember there was a point in time where it was like I was starting to finally figure it out and pick it up in the ring as but I was still doing and kind of pursuing the refereeing aspect. And I remember um I pulled Coach Tom aside and I was like, "Hey, like what is the plan for me? Are we going to continue having me pursue being a professional wrestler? Are we going to have me or do the ref stuff?" And he said, "You're doing too well for me. You're doing too well for us to want to have you push towards the refereeing aspect. We're going to have you do the wrestling stuff." So, yeah, training's been awesome. BioPro is absolutely a family to me. I talk to those guys every single day almost. I see Drew Cordero and I see some of those BioPro guys more times than I see my actual family some days or some weeks. I don't know where I would be just in general, if that makes sense. If it wasn't for BioPro, they've helped me in more ways than I'll ever be able to repay. And um, I love I love seeing it grow. Like we just moved to school recently, and just like it's been an awesome experience, and I'm always gonna be BioPro ride or die for like the rest of my life.
What goes into like a wrestling class or lesson or practice comparatively to like a basketball practice? Because one thing I think a lot of like average sports fans and especially people that aren't in the wrestling know don't understand is like how many elements there are to professional wrestling. So walk me through what like the average day at BioPro would look like.
So it's usually get there around 6 o'clock. We used to have to set up the rings. We don't have to set them up anymore with the new school, which is a blessing. Also because I'm the ring guy, so like, hey, I don't got to worry about something breaking as we set up and break down the rings as much now. But usually then I think class starts around 7. We start doing some warm ups, like warm ups are usually a lot of cardio, like jump rope, do some squats, a lot of squats. It's a lot of squats in professional wrestling. I'll tell you that. Push ups, um, and then usually hop in the ring. You start doing rolls, front rolls, back rolls, arm rolls. Hit the ropes maybe a couple times, and then usually it's at least with Bio Pro, it's the coaches will discuss beforehand what drills we should do to help lock in on what maybe the class is lacking right now, etc. And it's usually just a lot of drills in between, and then maybe at the end of class, you get a little bit of free time in the ring, and then class is over. But like the drills will all target different things usually.
That's awesome. Um, I touched on it a little bit. One other thing I wanted to ask you about, I feel like it's a big thing just in like, sports fandom, is there are a lot of people that don't know wrestling, haven't watched wrestling. They will be like very negative talking about professional wrestling. They'll talk down on it for being like quote unquote fake. Um, and just look at it as lesser than like other sports. So being someone that has not only been a fan of professional wrestling but is now in it as a professional wrestler, what is one thing that you would say to those people?
Honestly, my favorite ever is um I think Logan. I saw Logan Paul. I think it's an older quote from one of his podcasts, but Logan Paul was like when he did his first ever wrestling session. Was like, "All right, so yeah, when do we get to the bouncy ring?" because he like went up and touched the mat. I wish just some people could just go up and feel what that thing feels like. It like yes, it's fake. Yes, we are predetermined, but it hurts. It is extremely physical, and there's just I some of those guys that enter professional wrestling, in my opinion, are some of the most well-rounded athletes of all time. That if they wanted to pursue normal sports, they could absolutely smoke some of those guys that are out there saying like, "Oh, it's fake. It's it's undermining it." Um, I, like I said, I think that it's professional wrestling is such a mix of different athleticism aspects. Like you got to be have great cardio, you have great memorization. You have to be have an incredible pain tolerance. It's a lot of factors, and I really just wish some people would give it the time of day to I just know like, hey, like this shit is rough, and yes. I do think the fact that it is known as fake has undermined it, and then people are like, "Oh, it's like it's not like you're landing on a mattress." No, man, it's not like landing on a mattress at all. It is extremely physical, and it's honestly a blessing that um people don't get hurt as much as they probably should when they do wrestling.
That's one thing I wanted to ask about too. I know you very recently had a fractured jaw yourself. It seems like you bring up that it doesn't happen as much as it maybe should, but it still seems like if someone has a long enough career, some sort of injuries are almost a guarantee. So I wanted to ask you about like injury management. What are the best things you think you can do both outside and inside the ring to prepare yourself? And then, once you actually got injured, what was the key, like mentally and physically, to make sure that you were, ready that whole time, working, staying in it, and being prepared to come back?
So I feel like it's different for everyone when it comes to their like way of doing injuries. I think a great example is the Miz from WWE. The style he wrestled, I don't the guy barely ever got injured. I think he only like had an injury like maybe I might be wrong that I feel like there's a very long stretch that he like almost a 20-year stretch he never got injured, and it was like only like a year or two ago that he actually had his first ever injury. But it's the style he wrestles. I think the style you wrestle is always going to affect your chance of injury. I think that is honestly the biggest aspect of how you're gonna get injured and if you're gonna get injured, as well as, the type of guys you're wrestling and like there's a lot of factors that can affect injury. Like I said, when I was saying that it's honestly a miracle that more people don't get hurt. I think it's a mix of different things. Like with my injury, it was just something as simple as just a kick. Like I just was selling, and it wasn't like anything crazy. Like it was in a death match that I got injured in. It's like, oh, it was in a death match. It probably was like a chair shot to the head or something. No, it was just a simple kick on the ground that just like it was a little too rough, a little too hard, and just rocked my head and rocked my jaw, and it ended up putting a crack in it. Um, but I also wrestle an extremely, I would say, crazy style. I definitely think I tone it down in certain areas, tone it down when necessary, but in that scenario, I'm wrestling in a death match. Like I got to be a little more extreme, and I think myself personally, especially with my size, in the way I throw myself around, the way I bump, I again a little bit. I'm a little honestly happy and a little surprised that I haven't got injured as much as I have. I've had a couple small little things, just like oh my shoulder gets a little like tweaked, and I probably should take a week off. Or I hurt my ankle, I should probably take like a week or two off. Like never more than like a month that I had to take off. So like the most recent one was rough. I ended up getting let go from my job a couple days after it happened, and a couple days after I found out I may need surgery.
That's like a big demoralizer for all athletes because you're not doing what you love while you're injured. So how did you personally deal with that? And like, what are your best tips for people that are maybe getting seriously hurt for the first time?
Um, so I would say for me, um, it was honestly probably rougher for me because I got let go from my job very soon after I got injured. So I've just been it's been a lot of just like waiting. It's been very rough, honestly. For me, I put as much time and effort into rehabilitating my injuries as I could. Like that was main priority, 100% energy into just let's fucking heal, let's get better. Apologies for swearing.
You're all good.
I have I have a colorful vocabulary if anyone knows me in person. Um, but uh, with me personally, I'm lucky enough that due to how I already positioned myself in professional wrestling, that I become the ring guy. I became the ring guy. Like something breaks in the ring. Oh, we have to go to Handyman to fix it. Oh, we need to get new stuff for the ring. Oh, go to Handyman to check what we need. So I kind of got to continue just doing that aspect. I couldn't do as much physical with it came to that aspect, but I still got to do that aspect. And with the fact that we have wrestling open every single week, 2 weeks in a row, um, I got to um I get to still just be around wrestling, and especially when it comes to wrestling open, that's another aspect of maybe BioPro. And I very much would consider a lot of people in that place, very good friends, very family, that I got to go there and just still surround myself with wrestling and still get to watch it, still get to be there and not have to worry about maybe a lot of pressures that like maybe like normally I would if I wasn't hurt. And I think that was an awesome experience. I starting to learn different aspects of the business as well. Like like I love talking business with Drew. I've been learning the production software. Like I want to like switching, like being the switcher guy, like handling cameras and the effects like that. Um, I just want to have any presence in wrestling possible, so I'm willing to learn and try literally everything I can to have a presence within pro wrestling.
I think that's such a great mindset to have going into like anything. The learner's mindset is super important. And you talk about, being the ring guy, help fixing the ring. Is that where the handyman gimmick came from, or was there more going into that when you first got into wrestling?
Um, kind of. I would say mainly. I've always been very good with tools just my entire life. Like my whole family. My dad's a mechanic. My grandpa before him also worked as I don't think he was a mechanic. He worked with something. My uncle runs a tool repair company. I went to a vocational high school for manufacturing. So I've always just been very good with my hands, very good with tools. And I remember one time I think we needed something done, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I can do it." I no, it's just like I'll bring my tools tomorrow. And I think Drew just made a joke about, "Oh, this guy over here, he's the handyman. He brings tools out to the ring, he hits people in the head with them." And I just couldn't figure out, like, cause for a while I was like, "Oh, I'll be just wrestler. I'll be a wrestler." And I was like, "I don't think that's gonna work, just with my size, just with my physical, like it just didn't feel like it worked." And I was trying to figure out, oh well, I guess I have to go in a character direction, and I couldn't figure out a good character. I remember Drew making that joke, and I just latched on. I was like, oh, okay, this could maybe work. And then I talked to Coach Tom. Tom was like, yeah, you can come out in like jumpsuit, like overalls, like that would be cool. But like, yeah, I've just always been good with tools. So like, whenever there's a scenario with the ring, like I automatically kind of just stepped up because, well, I also enjoy it. Like I like being able to work with my hands. Obviously, some scenarios are a little frustrating, and if anyone knows me, they definitely know I can get frustrated pretty easily if a job isn't going the right way. um, but I've always just been very good with tools, so that's where the handyman came out of. Was just like kind of just me as a person. I'm not a handyman, and I get a lot of handyman requests. Like I get a couple emails. That maybe I get maybe one or two emails at least a month asking me to do legitimate handyman work. But I've just mainly always been good with my like hands with hands with tools when it comes to that. And I guess also, like I said, I just started working and like working on the rings and stuff. So somewhat, yeah.
Having such like a creative gimmick, especially in like the independent wrestling scene where sometimes a fan is coming and it'll be like their first time seeing you and they see such a limited amount, or maybe they're only ever see you once. How important do you think that is for you and just like any wrestler in general to be able to like stick out in somebody's mind?
I think it's arguably one of the most important things. Um, I think it's one of the reasons why my gimmick has gotten over as well is that it's unique. It's something that I think. there's people behind before me that have done something similar, like Spike Dudley, and obviously, like we're talking about Darby, like a smaller dude who's kind of a little more, a little more high energy, but like mine has a little more cool, like a little more fun nuances. And Handyman's just like a simple thing. Oh, he comes out of a jumpsuit with tools. He's the guy who works on the ring, but he also wrestles. Um, it's also, I think like very rarely there's like a blue collar type wrestler. And I'll say this, no, talking to people in the wrestling industry or wrestling fans specifically, there's a lot of blue collar like workers. So I get that automatic, like immediate connection with those types of fans. And that's helped me a lot. Um but I think, my unique presentation of wrestling in a jumpsuit and not wrestling in normal gear has automatically made me stand out. And I remember, I think it was recently, it was probably, I think it was the most recent Beyond show, was because I've started teaming with Ricky Champage and Eric Cha Cha, and I got them wearing jumpsuits, and they needed a tag team replacement partner because I was injured at the time. So we brought in Kennedy Copeland, and she also wear a jumpsuit. And I was talking to someone, I was like, isn't it crazy that like my dumb little character that was just a joke that Drew made it so three other people are wearing jumpsuits because of me. And like, I'm not even wrestling in the match. I'm on the outside doing managing, and I'm wearing a t-shirt with my logo on it, but I have three people in the ring wearing a jumpsuit because of my character. It was like, what happened? Like, what did I do that like get that to happen? But I think the characters massively helped me along my way and got me opportunities and got me farther than I think if I was just a normal wrestler would have.
Absolutely. You've brought up Darby a lot, and how Darby's like affected your style, the new AEW World Champion. But so I wanted to ask you, aside from Darby, like what wrestlers do you say like really inspired your move set? Because I think one thing that like a lot of wrestlers talk about is we've gotten like, wrestling is so storied that in terms of like actual moves you can do in the ring, there's almost nothing like 100% new to be done. So who else do you think like really helped you build your kit, would you say?
My coaches, I think that's like I'll be my first answer. TJ Crawford, Thomas Santel, Love Doug, and Ricky Champage. I've taken at least one or two things from each of those guys to insert into my move set. Like one of my big moves that I did for a very long time was the sliced bread, which is a move that Love Doug does a bunch. Um a lot of my chain wrestling, I take a lot from Tom. A lot of it is taught to me by Tom. A lot more of my like high risk stuff as a recent has been like a lot of my deathmatch stuff, etc., has become from Ricky Shane Page. And then with TJ is a very good guy to watch when it comes to improving my striking and maybe coming up with some like cool combos. But when it comes to actual wrestlers, besides like people in my inner circle, Darby's one of them. Spike Dudley obviously is another one. Like arguably the biggest small guy to ever wrestle. And he's someone that like knew how to protect his body in a decent, like the best way he could while getting over as a small dude. And he was awesome. Spike Dudley is extremely underrated, and I think a lot more people, if you are a undersized wrestler, should stop trying to do a classic indie style of super kicks, etc. Like the classic like indie style, and I think a lot more guys should be trying to wrestle like Spike Dudley. Um, Besides Spike Dudley, I'd also say Sick Mondo is a massive influence for me, especially when it comes to the deathmatch aspect of my stuff. Sick Mondo is, in my opinion, one of the greatest deathmatch wrestlers of all time, and I think if he was still around, he would have got signed if he continued going, even with his deathmatch background. I think he's one of the best ever. I take a lot of inspiration, a lot of influence from him. Other guys I take a lot of influence from is, I guess, a guy who has a more of an indie style would be Johnny Gargano. Been watching a lot of Johnny Gargano as of recent. He's someone that I've been taking a lot from as well. I would say those are, if I was to give you four guys, I would say that's probably a good four that I take a lot of inspiration, a lot of like I go to if I need an idea of stuff to do, would be a Darby Allen, would be a Johnny Gargano, would be a Spike Dudley, and would be a Sick Nick Mondo.
Bringing up all these guys and talking about your coaches too. You bring up Darby, you bring up Johnny Wrestling, Spike Dudley, who had pretty prolific careers in huge promotions. But so my question for you is being, an independent wrestler, being around a ton of independent wrestling promotions, are there any like independent wrestlers currently that like you see around you that you think like aren't getting enough credit for the work that they're doing?
I think the obvious answer everyone is going to say is Ryan Clancy. I think Ryan Clancy is legitimately the best unsigned talent on the independent wrestling scene by far nowadays. I when he got when I found out he got hurt that sucks because Clancy is someone that I feel like every time he gets to the top, something happens, and I'm gonna continue saying it. Clancy has been someone that I go to if I just need. I will when I'm like trying to figure out matches. I'll be like, well, okay, Clancy is someone that is so good that I feel like I said, I think he's extremely been underpassed, been extremely like ignored. I guess I'll also say my coach Ricky Shane Page. I feel like he's someone that like is extremely underrated. At a time was one of the best indie guys on the scene, and I think he's someone that a lot of people will like underestimate when it comes to like going to for advice. Other guys that I feel like are being overlooked. I feel like a lot of the indie scene, especially a lot of wrestling open right now, is extremely underlooked. I think I like Jack. I little maybe a little biased because he's a friend of mine and he's a BioPro student, but dude, I like Jack is he fires on all cylinders every time he gets to a ring. He's super consistent, has extremely good energy, and he knows himself extremely well. Another guy I would say also is DJ Powers. Like I'll always DJ is someone I love to share the ring with, and DJ is extremely young, but extremely gets it. He's awesome. DJ is another guy that I feel like because I would say compared to Clancy, DJ, and I Black Jack are mainly like they're known around the New England scene. While Clancy's like a little more international. He's gone to Japan, he's gone to the West Coast, etc. Um, I think those are the three guys I would definitely say like, oh, these are the guys that I feel like more people just in general should have their eyes on. I would say Clancy luckily has gotten a giant breakout as recent, but I would always say those three guys.
I love that Clancy was the first answer. My first ever wrestling open show at the White Eagle. This was, I want to say, 2 years ago. One of my buddies I went with, my friend Drew. Um, we're both WWE fans. Just very recently got into like the independent wrestling scene. The main event that night was Fancy Ryan Clancy. Um, and at the end of the show, my buddy Drew ends up buying a shirt, paying to take the picture with him, hitting the pose just the first time. So it's always funny to like look back thinking on that. You know, he's like the biggest Clancy fan of all time, you know, following everything he does. So it's crazy how like full circle that is, just like in my mind personally. Um, but taking a step forward even from that, I think in like wrestling conversations, one thing that always gets brought up is dream matches. So for you as a wrestler, is there anybody, you know, in the scene today that you really want to have a match with? Maybe on the independent scene that you haven't had the chance to scrap with yet, or then moving forward, maybe someone in one of the major promotions that you feel like you really just blend super well with.
I'm gonna say when it comes to dream matches, I kind of always have wanted to go a little more physical, like possible to what I feel like I could achieve right now. For so guys like obviously I would love to wrestle my coaches. I got one of them, I got Thomas Santel, and I got TJ and I got Doug. I missed Brian Malonis before he retired, so I need to make sure I don't miss Ricky. And I got to team with Ricky a bunch, but still haven't faced that bastard yet. So I'd love to wrestle him, whether that be a normal match, whether that be a death match. Um, I would say weirdly enough, a lot of my dream matches are like death match guys, which is funny because I feel like I'll have an easier time wrestling a lot of the guys I want to wrestle in normal matches anyway. Um, I would love to wrestle Schlack. Gage is obviously a massive one for me. Nick Gage would be if I got to share the ring with Nick Gage, that would be a moment for me. That would be awesome. Besides those guys, like, let me think of like who's on the current indie. Oh, Andrew Everett's one. He was like one of the first ever indie wrestlers I started really following. If I got to share a ring with Andrew Everett, that'd be really awesome for me. And kind of feel like a full circle moment. Um, a lot of the guys like on the current indie scene, I've luckily got to face in one form or another, and I've got to face a lot of. cool guys, a lot of guys I feel like I shouldn't have wrestled. Like I've got to have matches with a lot of the ID guys, like a lot of the ID guys I've got to wrestle before. I've got to wrestle Alex Reynolds. Like, Kingston would definitely be one. If I could share the ring with Eddie Kingston, that would be extremely awesome. I think that's a good list of guys for right now.
That's amazing. We're moving more towards like a goal-oriented conversation off of that. And this is a question it feels almost weird coming out of my mouth. Because since I've started doing media like podcasts, I've done about like 20 total episodes across different shows, and I've interviewed just north of 10 guests now, I believe. And you're the first guest I've ever interviewed that's younger than I am. So that's just like a strange feeling inside for me. But being at such a young age and having so much of this great experience already, what are your immediate 2026 goals? And then like long-term future, what are you thinking about? What's in store for the handyman?
For 2026, it was mainly just um I really wanted to explore the deathmatch aspect of stuff a lot this year. Um I still think I will. Um my second year of wrestling, I don't think I'll ever be able to top 109 matches all over the place, constant wrestling. Wrestling, I think if you did the math, I wrestled at least maybe once or twice a week. There's a part of me that when I sat down for 2026, I was talking to myself, I was like, what do I want to do? I was like, it would be cool if I did what I did last year, but like I don't feel as inclined. I don't feel as much energy to want to do it again. And I very much wanted to focus on maybe a couple singular companies and singular shows and really, really like grow myself at those ones. I very much would say that was probably the goal this year is, kind of like really hyper focus on growing in certain promotions. Um, as well as just getting out there more, just going to different places. Traveling a little bit more because I very much when I did my 109 last year, a lot of them was still in New England with maybe 10 to 15 outside of New England. So I wanted to, spice it up. I wanted to go to Philly more. I wanted to go to Jersey more. I wanted to go to like outside the company. Wanted to go to Canada or sorry, country. I wanted to go to Canada. Wanted to go to the UK. Like I want to travel a little more. I would say that's definitely one. Career goals. I'm always someone that kind of just will go one step at a time. I've never found myself personally to be someone that wanted to go to like say a WWE. Um, I think when growing up when I was super young, that was the style of wrestling I love, but I have a hard time watching it and enjoying it like a lot, like the AEW style or even a TNA style. Like it's a lot more for me enjoyable. Um, so when it comes to like long term career goals, I kind of just want to go one step at a time. But I'll tell you right now, like I love independent wrestling, and I think it would always be difficult for me to want to leave it if I got the opportunity to, just because I get to see so many different people every time I do independent wrestling, and I get to still be at home, which is always a big factor for me. Like I get asked all the time, if you could move anywhere perfect in your life, where would you go? And I said probably I wouldn't leave anywhere. Like New England in Massachusetts is it's my home. It's the only place I will ever consider my home. Um, Also, I can relate to you about the young thing. I had a match last year, which was against Devious Cass on Wrestling Open, and there's a part of me that thought, oh, he was like 20, 21, and then we get to the back. I'm talking to him. He's like, yeah, I'm 18. And I went, what? He was like, yeah, I'm 18. I'm like, oh, I think you're the first dude I've ever wrestled that's younger than me, man. Which is weird because my entire time, like in wrestling, I've always felt like I was the young guy. Like I started when I was 17. I wasn't even 18 yet. I was still in high school. Um, I was like the youngest guy to ever wrestle for a wrestling open for a very long time. Um, so I can relate to you about the oh wow, I'm starting to get like that's the first time in life I've ever realized like oh wow, I actually am getting old now. That like there's people that are younger than me that I've wrestled. Sure it's only a 2 year difference, but it's like oh I went from being the only young guy in wrestling open to now oh I am wrestling someone 2 years younger than me.
It's such a weird feeling. Like even only being like still 20, 21, because it's like in the mind, it's like, okay, we're definitely still young. But then you see these other people, it's like, dude, what is going on right now? Like
Yeah.
I don't need to be feeling old at this age. Um, you talked a lot about death matches throughout the course of this interview, and I think like the biggest thing about death matches in my mind is like the rule of cool. You know, going extreme is always going to be awesome, but from the eye of a professional, what do you think is like the art that goes into a great death match that maybe a lot of people don't think about?
The escalation. Um, the escalation and making it work for wrestling. That's what I like to do when I do hardcore and or just deathmatch in general is how can we take the aspects of deathmatch wrestling, hardcore wrestling that make it unique and implement it in a natural way to wrestling. I think too many guys nowadays, especially when they do that, are just like weapon, 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 which can work. It absolutely can, but I feel like it is more interesting if you can build a wrestling match around the using weapons instead of a just a thing about using weapons. And Ricochet and Page has been really, really helpful with that aspect and being able to teach me that style. But I think, like I said, I think it's mainly the escalation. Like you can't start off with the coolest thing in the match and then just have normal stuff. You got to figure out a way to continually escalate, go to the next thing, go to the next thing. But you also got to like show like maybe a guy being maybe getting a little more reckless, maybe getting a little more brutal with the weapons as a result of wanting to win the match. Like I feel like when you're doing hardcore deathmatch wrestling, you want to do stuff that makes sense to win a match. Certain things that I feel like I see a lot on the indie like deathmatch scene nowadays, just it's just like to get like a ooh ugh, like gross reaction from the crowd, and it's like, how is that going to help you win a match? Because yes, we know wrestling is fake, we know that, but we can still make it make sense. And whenever I do hardcore wrestling, I'm always trying to think like, yes, what is something cool I can do, but what makes sense to win a match out of it? If that makes sense.
No, absolutely. I think that's great insight into like the storytelling of wrestling because I think, you know, one thing a lot of people don't think about, especially the people that will just immediately shout, "Oh, wrestling's fake," is like the narrative because narrative's such an important thing. I mean, I think it was Chris Van Vliet that might have said it when someone was talking to him about, "Oh, dude, you know wrestling's fake, right? Oh, well, do you watch movies?"
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. Yeah.
so I think narrative's a great point to talk about. Um, and that's great coming to the close of this show. We are just about running out of time, but I do have one more question for you just to end on a little bit of a
Sure.
fun note. Um, so very recently, especially like the last year or two, in wrestling, we've seen like a lot of celebrities try and dip their feet into it. You know, we've had Jelly Roll, Pat McAfee, I Show Speed on WWE, Lil Yachty, the
Yeah.
Costco guys were showing up in AEW. So my question for you is, as someone who, you know, you mentioned working 100 plus matches last year, you know, you've really cut your teeth in wrestling school, you work hard, you are a true professional. What is your opinion of, you know, celebrities coming into the business that, you know, maybe have it easier because they are celebrities, or maybe, you know, don't necessarily work as hard to learn the business because of their position? And then coming off of that, if, you know, you had to have one celebrity to either tag with or maybe, you know, manage you on your walk out to the ring, who would it be?
Okay. So when it comes to my opinion on celebrities in wrestling, I feel like it's been heightened within the last couple of years, but I feel like it's always been around. WrestleMania 1, we had Mr. T in a match. Like, Mike Tyson was the special guest referee for another Mania match. Celebrities have always been around in wrestling. I feel like it's very been heightened, but I think a lot of people forget that like, especially within WWE, celebrities have always had a massive aspect when it comes to professional wrestling. Um, when it comes to my opinion of guys, it always depends on if I feel like they actually, because obviously most celebrities are going to do wrestling to get more eyes on their product. But I always have appreciated the guys that are doing it, but they also you can tell are a fan and aren't just doing it for themselves. Um, and they also understand the business a little bit. I think like the couple guys that I think were great examples that I think Logan Paul is the obvious one, but he also went from just being, oh, I'm a boxing celebrity social media guy to I'm now full time wrestler. Like not. I would say, yeah, he's full time. He's been extremely active within the last year. Um, he's probably the best example I will say when it comes to professional wrestling is him. When it comes to celebrities, I think a lot of other guys, I think Bad Bunny did it correctly. Like all three of his appearances were fun, were made sense, and you can tell he respected the business. His hardcore match with Damian Priest in Puerto Rico is extremely good. It's extremely fun match. I think Jelly Roll will his stuff with Cody Rhodes and Randy Orton is not the most well received at the time. I think his when he first came into the business, like, I think he put out in an interview out there being like, "Hey, can I lose my match?" He like asked Triple H that because he's like, "Yeah, if I lose my match, this gives me a reason to come back." And like that's something that's like, oh wow, like okay, he kind of gets it like a little bit more. I think it always makes sense. I think having celebrities in wrestling makes sense. It's going to appeal the outsider brawl, like outside appeal of professional wrestling no matter what. And it's always going to be an aspect that I think is going to exist. And I think it's obviously been heightened within the last 2 years, but it's always going to be around. But if I have someone for me to come out with or manage a team with me, I was talking to Drew about this recently. There's a um local Boston hardcore band called Haywire.
I've seen him.
Um, okay, sick. So you know who I'm talking about. Um, And I've seen them live 3 times, and the second time I saw them live, they were it was a wrestling show in Buffalo that the Butcher was putting on because Ricky Shane Page was on it, and I drove over with Ricky and, Drew just to, like, go hang out and just because I like the traveling aspect of wrestling. I like road trips. I like hopping in a car with people and just driving to a place and talking and, getting crappy gas station food. Um, and, they were playing again after the second show, and I was just like, "Yo, this would be sick," like and I think Drew like put out a post and was like, "Yeah, they're in talks with us, maybe to do something." I saw them again recently. I was just like, "Yo, if I could get the lead singer of like Haywire to do something, that'd be sick." Like I was joking around with Drew. I was like, "Yo, if he'll be down, I'll let him like throw me around and pin me in a ring like for a match." Like I think that'll be a sick one. Yeah, I would say maybe, especially as a recent, if I was a singular celebrity, also because like. I feel like the independent music scene, like independent wrestling scene, are very a lot more similar than a lot of people give them credit for. Um, I feel like I would want to choose someone from the like that's from Boston, that's from Massachusetts, that's like and understands the independent type scene. Also, he's a wrestling fan. He powerbombed a dude through a table during one of his shows, just like while they were doing a breakdown, like. He gets it as well, I bet. So I would say he's probably a fun answer to maybe team with Face or have him manage me.
That's a great answer for sure. I've only seen them once, but he definitely has a great mic presence. When he's telling his stories in between their songs, he really got me invested. And I knew very little about Haywire before seeing them, so that was definitely like a great experience and a great answer. But Jake, I want to thank you very much for joining me. I really appreciate it. I'm looking forward to seeing you healthy and in the ring again whenever you're ready. I'm excited to, go back to Wrestling Open whenever I get the chance to make it back to Massachusetts. Is there any, closing comments you'd like to add or anything you'd want to say?
I would mainly just say support all forms of wrestling, support the big leagues, support the small leagues, especially support the small leagues. We host 2 shows a week. Like there's no reason you can't come out to a wrestling open if you're in the area. It's the best value you will get for your $10, and I'm always going to say that about wrestling open, especially. It's like you got $10, got nothing to do on a Thursday or Monday night, come out to wrestling open.
That's a great message. Once again, thank you very much. For all the viewers out there, thank you for tuning in. If you're a wrestling fan, if you're a Jake Gray fan, I hope you enjoyed. If you're not a wrestling fan, I hope you learned a lot. This was definitely very informational, even for me. And I like to think I know at least a little bit about wrestling. Um, so, from the sports perspective, that's all for today. Thank you very much. Thank you for watching this episode of The Sports Perspective. Make sure to look out for the rest of our content and leave a comment down below.